Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about Zagara. She's got her little bit of a rework that she got with Corrosive Saliva and how some of her auto attacks work. And despite it wasn't really like a full rework, I did want to talk about how it was big enough that it shifted the build that I recommend. And I've been testing a lot of Zagara lately. She's actually one of the primary heroes I've been moving up in rank with. And I've been seeing a lot of Smurfs play her as well. So she has a lot of different things going for her that are really interesting. With that in mind, I do want to mention a few things that I recommend with her and some, in my honest opinion, trap talents that you should really avoid. So the goal is to try to get up to the Corrosive Saliva and to make it a very efficient talent when you get there. So a lot of what I do is I'm going to be playing the macro game, and I'm also going to be picking talents that are going to be good on their own, but also good with Corrosive Saliva. And I'm going to be avoiding talents that are only good with Corrosive Saliva, and I'm going to be avoiding talents that are only good without Corrosive Saliva, if that's okay. And I'll kind of explain a little bit about that when we get there. But for the first part is Corpse Feeders. Corpse Feeders is extremely good with Corrosive Saliva because it makes it to where you have a 100% roach uptime. Meaning 100% of the game you have two things that are going to be doing 1.75% of someone's health per second while also doing damage on their own, which is usually about equal to that amount as well. So it's a really good amount. They give them extra health, but generally I pick it just for the cooldown reduction. Yes, Infest is super good. Don't get me wrong. It's a very strong talent and is pretty awesome. But I'm going to be talking about this Corrosive Saliva build, and for that to work, Corpse Feeders is extremely strong. Especially when they're heavy frontline like this, and especially when they're high health like a Diablo. So in the early portions of this game, I'm going to be focusing on just macro. I want to get vision on the objective, and I actually really like Zagara on this map because once you start worrying about the enemies getting turn-ins, you're going to watch that I have very specific placement for my trait that's going to tell us whenever the enemies are actually going to be getting the objective. So you'll see that I start adjusting the positioning of my trait about halfway through this game, and at that point, it's going to be really, really valuable. Level 4, when we get there, I take Medusa Blades. It's really nice in team fights. It just is a nice boost of your damage. It essentially increases your chaos damage by 66%. What I mean by chaos damage is it's any sort of damage that might not go on the targets you want it to go onto, but will likely just do extra damage that's overwhelming to heal against. So again, something like a Brightwing, who has a very set amount of healing that she can do over time, doing extra chaos damage is always nice. Serrated Spines is okay, but consistently stacking this talent is very difficult unless you're in the solo lane against someone who's just going to be sitting there and letting you attack them. A lot of times, this talent turns out to be a bait, and I would rather take Envenom or Medusa Blades over Serrated Spines just because it takes a long time to get value out of it to where it's actually a strong talent. In fact, just last game that I played, I was with a Zagara who took this talent, and I out-DPS'd her as Joanna, despite the fact this was a Diamond Zagara. Because Serrated Spines just takes too long to get value out of. Medusa Blades is an immediate 66% increased chaos damage. In order to get that value on Serrated Spines, you need a lot of stacks because it's 5 stacks per 1%, so it would be 5 times 66 in order to equal Medusa Blades chaos damage. But Serrated Spines would be more impactful damage, except for the fact that it just takes so long to stack. You would need hundreds of auto attacks to get that value. Which is why I just am not a big fan of it. And that's okay. Unless I'm like against a Misha or something that's just going to let me auto attack forever. That being said, I like Envenom Spines because it's a high amount of burst, costs no mana, and it's a surprising thing that people aren't expecting. Instantly adding 300 damage to your attack is huge. So anytime you're taking like awkward trades, you just want that extra damage, this is surprisingly good. So in short fights, Envenom Spines is much better. In long fights, Medusa Blades is much better. And Serrated Spines just tends to take too long to get value out of, which is okay. Level 7. I like Viscous Acid. Now, Bile Drop is one that I've tested a million times. This quest is just way too hard to get consistently. If you get it, you increase the damage of your roaches by 33%, which is awesome. But the odds of getting this, the higher rank you get, is impossible. In fact, same thing from last game. We had a game where we reached past level 20, and he was only at 5 stacks. I do not recommend this talent. Because it's just going to take way too long to get value off of. I've tried it a million times. Now, and that's just pure damage. I like Viscous Acid because it gives some utility to it, and it doesn't just help. It's not just a good talent on its own, but it also is a good talent with the Corrosive Saliva because it's going to be slowing them and leaving them in the damage for longer, to where they're going to be much more likely to just get downed by all of your increased chaos damage that you're doing. So you can see the auto attacks that I'm doing are just shaving down Brightwing's health, even though I'm focusing on Diablo the whole time. Brightwing is just taking so much damage that she got so low she just died. So chaos damage is great. I send off some Banelings to slow Diablo more in case we want to go for that. But ultimately, I'm just going to focus primarily on dealing some structure damage. Also, Medusa Blades is also great for sieging because you're going to be hitting 3 different targets at once. So it's not just increased single target. It's just good all the time. It's instantly valuable, and it's instantly good for so many different things. Viscous Acid's just good. So what I try to do in fights, I'll just do a quick paint for it. I try to fire off my Banelings like this. Because it's going to hit people, and then it's going to hit like an entire area of people rather than just hitting one person and slowing them the same amount 3 times. It'll actually slow like an entire team. So right here, I showed the first time of where I'm going to be placing these traps or these things from now on, because they give full vision of this area, making it really easy to hold that position for the rest of this game. And now our goal is just to hit level 16. Overall, we aren't that scary. We can look at our damage, and we keep up with Lunara, but we're really not that scary. Because we're just like Lunara, we're very heavy chaos damage. But the cool part about Zagara is that Zagara brings vision to the game. Zagara can bring a global to the game. Zagara can bring percent health to the game. Zagara does a lot of things that Lunara doesn't do, and Lunara, of course, does things that Zagara doesn't do. But right now, I love Zagara where she's at. Now, I recommend Nidus Network 9 times out of 10. You use a lot of mana, and getting that global allows you to continue just dominating and keeping that experience going. However, on small maps, I like to take Devouring Maw. I also like to take Devouring Maw against Diablos to go Lightning Breath, purely because and again, I can see them all at the thing because of the stuff that I have, even though I just face check. I like Devouring Maw because against Diablo, if he goes Breath, you can just Maw him whenever he breaths. So I like stuff like that. Look at that slow. That slow killed Greymane. Nice little slow, just something very small, but it definitely works out. So an enemy did get a Web Weaver. That's okay. We will just clear it up as safe as we can, as quick as we can. So I like to summon roaches to tank minions whenever I can. And I'm actually probably going to just back here because I want to have some extra health. We'll let this Thrall do work when he can. And after I gain a little bit of mana, I'll head in and I'll see which one of these we need to deal with. Top, we pushed far enough. It's going to decay pretty much by the time we get there. So now I just need to go help out mid a little bit, which is okay. We won't have a healer for the mid fight, though. So with Devouring Maw, there's a few things that you can do to increase the damage of it. I like to use Maw and then immediately drop or wait a little bit and then try to time my drop and my Banelings to all hit at the same time right as they get out of Maw. I also like to use Maw on fleeing enemies. Maw during fights is something that I just despise because unless you can do it like this, where you Maw to where you can turn off like 3 people while you get time to kill others. I don't usually like Mawing during fights because you're going to mitigate the damage the enemy team's going to take. In this case, it worked out really well. I sent in 3 Banelings and I sent in a Roach drop. Even though I died from the Diablo's fire, they came out of that Maw and immediately lost half their health. Which is what you really want to be doing with those Maws. So we took a fight that was looking a little awkward. They were engaging into us, and we immediately turned the fight. So I only like doing Maws at the beginning of fights or at the end of fights. During fights, I'm not a huge fan of it because people are usually attacking stuff, and they get killed. So I try to do it either at the beginning or the end of a fight. But I love Maw. It's a very powerful ability. It's like a VP that only hits enemies, which is pretty cool. But you got to watch out for it because just like you can mess up a VP and screw up your team, you can do the same with Maw. So once again, I'm just placing those. That'll give me full vision over that point, so we don't need to worry about them turning in. I send out little Banelings in multiple different directions. Now, to talk about the rest of this build, I take Hydralisk Transfusion just to take a little bit off of the healer's role. It's just kind of a simple way so that you can heal a little bit of the damage done. You're not taking a lot of Hydralisk talents, so it's not going to be huge, but it will be kind of nice. I don't like armor and creep because for the most part, I only want to be taking poke damage. I don't want to stay in a fight and take huge burst. Outside of like Pyroblast, I pretty much should never need armor. Spell Shield would be the only option if I needed that to survive Pyroblast, which is definitely an option. But I just go Hydralisk Transfusion so I can survive any poke that's going out. So like right here, I can get a decent amount of life back from just my W, and I can just walk out even though I was healed up. As far as level 6, Corrosive Saliva, I mean, that's what the build's about. And then level 20 is Tyrant Maw if you went that ult, or Endless Creep if you want to go the other ult, so you can set your globals all over the place. Fury of the Swarm's pretty good, but I tend not to have issues with that. So again, you saw those big slows, making it to where they couldn't get out. We also used an ult on the Brightwing so we could take out this Brightwing very quickly. So we slowed 2 people and got kills on those, and we used the Maw to kill another group. So that's it. And this is the reason why I like this build so much, is I'm strong before level 16. Even though this build gets super strong after 16, I'm very strong until we get to 16. Which is why I don't recommend people taking like this, which takes too long to build up, this, which takes too long to build up, then like this, which is just not giving you any extra benefits really immediately. Everything that people I see on these Zagara builds are so late game that people just lose every objective. Me, I'm like, no, I'm going to win every single objective, and then at level 16, I'm going to be scary. So this is what it looks like when I hit 16, when I get Corrosive, and I just need to drop down Roaches like once. And ultimately, like, what's going to happen is if you can drop down Roaches and Hunter Killer and have it all attack the same target, that target dies in seconds. And I'll show you guys, like, the potential damage in try mode after this, because it has some really insane potential damage. But I just play it for chaos damage. I just be really annoying in fights, and I play for chaos, because it's surprisingly good. Like right now is kind of a great example. So we only really have a tank, a healer, and me right here. And watch what happens to their health when that Roach lands down. So each attack from the Roach is going to do 46 damage because that's the percent health, and 51 damage because that's what it does. So 100 DPS twice, 200 DPS from those. So that's the damage from the Roaches. Then watch this Diablo's health as I'm doing percent health damage to him now. Because he's taking 105 from that percent health damage. So Diablo gets roasted as well. It's such high damage that you can do to people. It's seriously just an incredible amount of damage. Roaches are terrifying, and like you want to kill them, but that 30% extra health just makes it just not worth it to try to kill anyone with it. So this is essentially the full build. I will take 20 talents to upgrade. Again, Maw, I just like it. 50% more damage already does a lot of damage. So when people come out of Maw and you throw a bunch of Qs and an E to land down, they pretty much instantly die, which is awesome. And then the, again, Endless Creep if you're going to be going Nidus Network, so you can drop Niduses really far away. The Medusa Blades also speeds up taking camps. It speeds up waves, speeds up whatever you need. I still have vision here, but I'm going to place 2 more down just so I'm a little bit safer. I wanted to see what they did, and I wanted to just maw, but then I decided to be like, you know what, I'm not going to maw because I'm here alone. And even just like, look at just this is look at how much damage that does to him. It's just crazy. So we've got Web Weavers coming in once again, and this should be game. We can just push with these and end off the game. I do see her out of position. I might just maw her. We'll see, though. A lot of times I like to just maw just to catch people out of position. So watch, and like stuff like this. Look at this Ragnaros' health just get dropped by just a couple little roaches. It's crazy. There's those roaches. Look at that. Boom. I mean, it's small damage, but it's just happening so much that it's just like, how do they even deal with it? And again, I didn't use... I thought I was going to use Maw to catch Brightwing, but I didn't. It's kind of hard to just pick it if they're not slowed or anything, to just toss out a Maw and get it, because you need to practice with it a lot, because it does take a second or two to trigger. This game, if you added up all of my auto attacks, I would have maybe only had about 60 or 70 procs on Serrated. Yeah, and again, like, so watch what I do here. I'll throw all of my Qs out so that right as he gets out of this, he gets slowed and he takes a chunk of damage. Now, he did have somewhere to jump away to, so that was pretty good. But yeah, constant summons, constantly doing damage is just all you need. And then more roaches over here. We'll zone them out and force them to stay near their thing. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how you do it with Zagara. As far as damage goes, I kept right in line with Lunara pretty much the entire game, but I also have slows. I've got Maw. I've got the possibility of globals. I mean, you pretty much are a Lunara that does more % health damage. And you actually scale better post 16 than Lunara does, especially after they've made the scaling changes. So I would actually compare them a lot, except for Zagara is just a lot safer. You can throw your drops really far away and then just walk away and let those just do a bunch of damage. Throw Hydralisk and then walk away and do a bunch of damage. Like, there's so much you can do by just throwing stuff out and walking away that Lunara can't do. She has to keep going in, hitting things, pressing W, walking away. You just drop down roaches and walk away. But yeah, that's Zagara. That's the build I would recommend right now. It's just very consistent. I don't recommend the quests because they take too long. We want to make sure that we can get to 16 where you really just start dominating. We don't want to have to rely on our team to help us to get to 16 so that we can start dominating. We want to make sure our talents get us there. So I really like these talents. You get a ton of zone control, you get a ton of chaos damage, and you get just enough. I would recommend, if you are picking someone to work with Zagara, I would recommend picking a damage dealer that does damage where you want it to go, because a lot of Zagara's damage is going to be random, because the roaches, you can't choose who they attack. So I would recommend picking someone like a Greymane who can just pick the targets that you want to blow up. But overall, that is Zagara. I've been playing a lot of Zagara. I'm always going to show you something in try mode. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time. I'll just mention some DPS things that you can do and some other tricks, but for the most part, it's she's not too crazy. We go down to Range Assassin, go into try mode, and I'll show you like some potential DPS that you can do that gets really intense really fast. So if we get to like 16s, let's leave Arthas on there just because he's a good like average health, a little higher than average, but good health to work on. Medusa Blades, again, we want to go with consistency. Maw, and then you go with Killer, Corrosive, and call that a day. So what we want to do here is we want to Maw, and then we want to immediately throw everything out so that it's timed where everything still lands. So normally what you'll do is you'll like Maw, and you'll see if it lands, and if it lands, you're going to throw out a bunch of these, and I timed it too early, but it is something you'll want to practice. But even then, this is kind of the DPS that you can be expecting. And if you can use Qs in between, that's great. Huge DPS, and it's DPS that you can walk away from too. You can keep throwing Qs out to slow, and you can stay at a really long range, which makes her kind of a terrifying person to deal with because of how far away she can be from fights and still have a really high DPS. So that's kind of what you can do with her. She's really, really scary. But yeah, if you can get the Maw timing a little bit better, then she can be even scarier. For example, you just hit this, and then throw in that. Oh, I missed my E, but still. I mean, look at this guy's health. And then you can just keep slowing him. And look at this. Look at this guy. He can't even get away. Like, I missed that last Q, but it's brutal. You melt tanks. You really do. You melt tanks with that high % health damage. But then you also are just relatively scary in general when you are playing Zagara, because your auto attack still, I mean, look at this, like, possible damage. If you are in AoE, like, the amount of damage you can do during a fight is crazy. And it's just super consistent. So I highly recommend like 800, 900 DPS during fights. Yeah. I highly recommend trying out this build on Zagara. Let me know what you think about it. While I do like Maw, I think Nidus is definitely still the go-to. Use those globals. Push with the global and then join your team, because you're going to do so much if you can do that, where you're just constantly pushing alone. And then right as you guys are about to fight over an objective, hop in, throw a bunch of % health damage out, melt their front line. And then right as they're resetting, you're going to go get back in a Nidus, hop back up and start destroying a structure again. And then you're going to hop back in the Nidus, hop back down and push away their front line again. And you will just be a beast, a force to be reckoned with for sure. So highly recommend trying her out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and feel free to check out my other videos.